Hello and welcome to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series from United Church Homes. On this show, we look at what it means to age in America and other places around the world with positive and empowering conversations that challenge, encourage, and inspire all to age with abundance. And this is part of our Aging Innovators series. And we're back with Eric Levitan, founder and CEO of Vivo, which is an innovative online exercise company. I wrote that. I don't want to say that 5 times fast, but innovative online exercise company that combines cognitive exercises and physical exercises. So exercise and brain games. I know that's oversimplified, Eric. I'm sorry about that. But welcome again. And it's great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Before we get started, we're going to do a disclaimer. We're talking about exercise, and we're also talking about exercising as you age. And before starting or modifying any exercise program, we're going to ask you to check with your doctor, check with your medical professional, before you start anything of that sort. So now that the legal stuff is out of the way, the subject for today is this world of what we call dual tasking exercise. I know that that's something that is the cornerstone of Vivo. It's an interesting concept. It's a concept that was new to me, combining cognitive and physical. So I want to get into that as a subject. But, on previous episodes, you've shared a little bit about your background, how you come to found Vivo. What was the most surprising thing, though, just now that you're actually Vivo is up and running, it's growing, you got a terrific NIH grant. What is the thing that's really surprised you the most about running the company that so far?
The biggest surprise that I've taken away is the stickiness of what we've created. And it's very relevant for this conversation. And it's all about this live and interactive experience with a small group where we're leaning into this social engagement. And it's funny, we built in, and I know we'll talk more about what dual task exercises are. We built this in really to promote cognitive and brain health and really focus on the science that's evolving around that. But the amazing side effect is we're getting people talking. We're getting people talking in small groups, which facilitates this opportunity to have social connection. And the social connection is driving accountability to the group, which is creating behavioral change.
It's a very virtuous circle, right?
It is this really wonderful thing. And when I first created this business, I knew there were two core challenges that we needed to solve. One was, how do we get people to try it? And the other is, how do we get people to stick with it? And I really thought that getting people to stick with it was going to be the true challenge of this business. And what we found is getting people to stick with it has been the natural outcome of these dual task exercises and this live and interactive small group.
And then live and interactive small group club, but online too. We're not talking about meeting, in a rec center somewhere. We're talking about people building community in small groups online, right?
That's right. And it's funny. I obviously I talk about this a lot with people, and really I would never say that being online is better than being in person, right? Being in person carries with it so much more from a communication and connection perspective. However, being in person also carries with it a lot of other things that sometimes make being in person not possible, whether it's comfort in driving, traffic, weather, worrying about what you look like. There are so many barriers that sometimes get in the way from people participating in person that it actually doesn't happen. And participating online, especially in a small group that you can really lean in and facilitate that connection, a lot of those barriers go away. So I would never argue that being, online is better than being in person. In some ways, it's just a lot easier. It's a lot easier to engage. And therefore, it kind of is just as good because, again, engaging online as opposed to not doing anything is absolutely better. And that's what we're seeing over and over and over again is these communities that are cropping up within our program.
Well, people are excited about it, and then people see if they're seeing results and all that, it's motivating, and then you have this concept of dual tasking. I've been excited to talk to you about dual tasking exercise for a while, but tell our listeners what this is about. I mean, is this a trend? Has this been around for a while? What is it? How did you come across it?
Sure. So
I told you I asked 5 questions at once, by the way. So
you're just keeping that consistency. I love it. So dual task exercising as a general concept is really all about, as it relates to fitness, is all about the simultaneous physical movement and cognitive recall. And we really saw it a lot in programs for neurocognitive disorders like Parkinson's, dementia, et cetera, where we probably, if you know someone who has Parkinson's, you may have seen boxing programs that are out there. And boxing programs do a couple of things. They really work on balance and agility and movement, and promote, good physical health. But there's also this cognitive component where they actually teach you, they associate numbers with punches. And so anything, as in just give a little bit of a window into this, anything with an odd number might be your left hand, anything with an even number is your right hand. And a number one might be a left jab, and a number two is a right jab. And a number three is a left hook, and a number four is a right hook. And they'll teach the participants these associations between numbers and punches. And then they'll call out numbers and they'll say 1, 2, 4. And you have to remember, one is a left jab, two is a right jab, and four is a right hook. And that association is a dual task exercise. You're recalling this information that you've been taught while you're controlling the physical movement of your body. And we really took that concept, and there's been a lot of science, especially over the last 10 years, around how beneficial this is in delaying the progression, especially of cognitive disease, of mild cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's, dementia, et cetera. And that exercise alone is probably one of the single best things you can do to prevent cognitive decline. But incorporating these dual task exercises, again, there's a growing body of evidence that is a really effective tool at delaying the progression of these cognitive disorders. And so we've leaned very much into that. One of our scientific advisors works in the Department of Neurology at the Emory School of Medicine and studies brain health and exercise for a living. And he really worked with us to incorporate this concept into our program. We do it in every single class throughout the class. I'll give a very, very real world example because I had Vivo this morning that I do with my mom. And this is what our dual test today is while we were going through a warm-up circuit, the trainer actually read a story. And it was a very basic story about two friends, what their names were, how long they've been friends, where they live, what their hobbies are, what they enjoy doing together. And for the rest of the class, they would ask us questions about that story. And it's really a kind of a silly thing to maybe imagine, but here's what happens. You're trying to recall this information that you just learned while you're moving. It's a lot harder than it sounds. But B, everyone starts laughing. It's silly. It's fun. It becomes this kind of collaborative exercise because, of course, no one can remember the names of these individuals or what their hobbies were. So you begin to crowdsource it. And what ends up happening is before you know it, we're having this very social connected experience, this shared experience that is really driven by this dual task exercise that also happens to be really beneficial for our body and our mind. And
Yeah, no, sorry. I didn't mean to talk over you, Eric. Just finish your thought, please, please, please.
no, and that's just one small example. The other thing that really becomes even more meaningful is we'll ask people questions about themselves. Another moment that really sticks out in my mind as a wonderful example of this is we had just come back from the holidays earlier this year in January, and the trainer asked us all while we were going through this warm-up circuit, describe the most, in as much detail as possible, describe the most delicious thing you ate for your holiday meal. And the very first person went and talked about the cranberry sauce that she ate at her Christmas dinner. And for the next 45 minutes, our classes are 45 minutes. For the next 45 minutes, the whole class broke into two camps: people that thought cranberry sauce was delicious and people who thought cranberry sauce was disgusting. And it was this wonderful social moment that, again, it created this real connection. It culminated with people texting cranberry sauce recipes to each other after the class, right? So this community extends outside of the Vivo class now. But it was this wonderful example of the kind of social connection you can provide when you prompt with these kinds of brain games, these dual task exercises.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know it could play on so many different levels. So on our last episode, we talked about the elements of an exercise program where it's consistency. You have to be able to do it. Yeah, you want everyone to do, twice a week, challenge, 8 to 12 reps. The last couple of reps should be hard, variation, mixing it up like you're just describing here. And then commute with fun with community, and that's just fascinating. And by the way, I just want to, I know that at least in the world, my experience with the world of aging, I know that, outside of cognitive decline, loss of balance, falls. That's probably number one, number two fear of anyone who's experiencing, functional limitations. Your body begins to disappoint you, things like that. So fear of cognitive decline, fear of falling. You're kind of hitting them both here with the dual tasking exercise. But I don't know. Why do you, I mean, is there any sort of scientific basis in how it works, or why do people think that this is kind of a game changer?
Yeah, there's a ton of evidence around this, and there continue to be more and more studies. And I just read a meta-analysis where they go out and they look at all the existing literature and kind of combine it together. And literally, it's multiplying by the day in terms of the organizations that are really focusing and studying this. And it continues to paint this very wonderful picture around improved cognition, improved balance, and improved function and even improved lower body strength when you're going through a dedicated strength training program that's incorporating dual task exercises like Vivo is. And so, you touched upon balance. Balance is a wonderful example. A lot of people think that falls happen as just this kind of natural course of walking. And it's funny, there's a couple of really significant reasons that falls happen. One of them is we're moving as a plane through a plane of space and something distracts us and we turn our heads and we don't see that we're about to step up onto a curb or a carpet lip. That's an actual dual task in real life that's happening that's causing us to fall. And the more that we practice this, the more that we train for this, the better we can adapt to that changing environment because we live in a changing environment, right? And the more that we are out there in the world, the more that we have to be adept at dealing with these things that happen. And so there's again a lot of research that's being done, and it is evolving science, by the way. So I think they're still learning what the true impact is. But again, it absolutely is. As someone who sees this every day, I not only see it in terms of the scientific literature, I see it in terms of what happens in the classes, and it's this wonderful thing to watch. And it's funny. We talked about those four kind of pillars of exercise of consistency, challenge, variation, and community or fun. Um, that last one, which we didn't talk a ton about, but I think is very, important to highlight as we talk about this topic of dual task exercises. The number one indicator of whether you will stick with an exercise program is how much fun you have. And so we can't ignore that, right? Because you can have the best exercise program in the world. It can lean into all those core pillars, all those core principles. If it's not fun, you will not do it. And so fun doesn't mean the same thing for everybody, but again, for a lot of us, fun really has to do with connecting with other human beings and having this be accountability to a group. And so this concept of dual task exercises really facilitates that experience within a Vivo class.
That's terrific. And I'm just thinking also back to this concept of variation when because, if you're talking about an exercise program that it's the same exercise program every single time and all that, your body just kind of goes on autopilot, right? But that's not how the real world works, right? I mean, the real world is all full of different variations and surprises and this and that. So bringing that into an exercise program is I guess it mimics that, right?
Absolutely. And even from a dual task exercise perspective, so some very common dual task exercises is they'll have someone from the scientific literature, they'll have someone performing a physical exercise and counting backwards from 100 by 7. Again, if you do that only over and over and over again, you're not kind of creating that level of variation, that level of challenge. And that's what we really try to lean into is incorporating that not only into the physical aspect of what we're doing, but into the dual task element of what we're doing and the cognitive element by constantly challenging the brain through variation and this concept of periodization.
Yeah. So I love the example of counting back from 100 by sevens and all that. And I'm not, for someone that may want to kind of try this out or try this out at home. I mean, we can't approximate a Vivo class or whatever. But are there a couple of fun things that maybe folks can put into their exercise program that may give them a kind of an insight into what dual tasking exercise can do, or really the experience of dual tasking exercise is?
Sure, and ultimately, by the way, we didn't even really talk about some of the benefits outside of of balance and just kind of generically talking about cognitive health. It's really about executive function, and that's one of the in the frontal lobe of the brain, and that's really where you see the most activity. And so to bring this into your own program, there's different things that you can do, and there's different ways that we've leaned into incorporating this. Part of it is visual, and so having it may be something like a clock drill where you can have prompts with a time, and you do a lunge back to that time. So if it's 5 o'clock, you'll take your back leg back to do a lunge like it's the big hand, right, of 5 o'clock, or actually be the small hand, sorry. Or if it's 12 o'clock, you lunge forward into the 12 o'clock position, right? That's one example. There's also colors you can incorporate. We'll often bring this, we'll do this in Vivo classes. You can do this yourself. We'll have 4 different colored sheets of paper. And when an exercise is time to do an exercise, you'll actually incorporate that different color, that different. So if we're doing push-ups, then you go over by the red, and that's your cue. That's your visual cue. We do boxing. This is another wonderful thing where we associate activities with numbers and then basically create a list of numbers and try to recall what that is. We do the standard, like I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing an apple, and then the next person goes, I'm bringing an apple and I'm bringing in a banana, right? Anything that starts to test your memory and that ability to recall information are things that you can bring in for yourself as you're planning out what this exercise program looks like for you.
Well, I mean, it's just fascinating, and I know we could talk a lot about this. Um, I mean, what has excited you the most as you've seen this be, this get used and applied and all that? I mean, what's, uh, you know, obviously you're getting up every day, raring to go, and wanting to see the next page of the book. But what's been the sort of the most satisfying part of all of this for you?
The most satisfying part of this is seeing the outcomes that we see and the longevity of people participating in this program. And those two, by the way, go hand in hand, right? So we certainly see wonderful results at the 2 month mark. Again, we're measuring outcomes, we're measuring progress as a part of what we're doing. So we see data on everybody and everyone. 100% of people that join this program show improvement between baseline and 2 months. We've never had anybody who did not get stronger in the first 2 months. It's not rocket science. It turns out if you consistently strength train, you get stronger. Who knew?
And you can build muscle and flexibility at every for you as against yourself. You can build those gains, right? No matter how old you are.
At any age. We have customers in their 90s, we have customers in their 40s, and everything in between. And there is no capacity, there is no limit to the point that you can engage in a program, an exercise program generically or Vivo, and see those gains. So the more that we collect data, the more we see this really compelling picture on what is possible. And it is fantastic, Mike. It really boggles your mind to know that we've got access to probably the single greatest thing that we can do for ourselves. There's this wonderful quote from a gentleman named Robert Butler, who is the original director for the National Institute on Aging, who said, if exercise could be packaged into a pill, it would be the single most widely prescribed medicine in the world. And that is so true. And we've known this for so long. Exercise is good for us. There's nothing new or novel or innovative about that. But how to adopt this into your routine and seeing what the impact of adopting it into your routine is really wonderful. And the other side of that is people continue to do this. It's blowing me away that this has become such a meaningful part of people's lives. And it's because it works. Right. It's they're seeing the difference. We can measure it all day long, but if you don't feel it yourself, then it doesn't, necessarily resonate. But people are doing things they couldn't do before. The other wonderful thing that we hadn't really talked about yet in this series of podcasts are the health benefits of strength training go beyond disease management and disease prevention. What we tend to see when people engage in a program like Vivo or a fitness program or specifically a strength program is you get better quality sleep. People tend to lose weight. You drop blood pressure, your cholesterol goes down, your mood improves. All of these wonderful intangibles that happen as a result of engaging consistently in a fitness program, and specifically a program like Vivo that's focused on building strength. You see all these wonderful ancillary benefits that go beyond just fall prevention and type 2 diabetes management.
Wow. Well, Eric, that is a great place to end. A great place to end this 3-part series we've got with you. And we've got that we always like to end with kind of a question about your personal reflections on aging. But before we do that, where can we find you?
You can find us at teamvivo.com. That's TEAM, like you're a part of a team, Vivo, VIVO.com. We believe that when you join this program, you are becoming a part of a team. We are all in this together. This is a very judgment-free zone. We all are moving towards the same goal, which is to maximize our quality of life and independence as we get older. And that's what we're all about.
That's awesome too. So teamvivo.com. And now for our mystery question about aging. So, all right. What has surprised you the most about yourself as you've aged?
What has surprised me the most is how inquisitive I have become about the world around me. I think, and this might be something that is not so surprising, and we all maybe experience to a certain extent. But I've become fascinated by things that I never thought I'd be interested in, and I think part of it is just that maturity and learning more about the world around us. But it's really sparked something in me that's created this drive to learn more and more and more. And I don't think I had this level of curiosity when I certainly didn't have it as a teenager. I'm pretty sure I didn't have it in my 20s. But as I've gotten older, and especially as I've gotten into my 50s, I have this thirst for knowledge and deep knowledge that I'm just shocked by how much research I do, how deep I go, and how interesting it is to me. And things like history that I can remember going to. I'm an alumni of Duke University. You can opt out of different paths in order to get your degree, and I opted out of history. That was one of the topics that I had no interest in at all, and now it's like the most fascinating thing in the world. And so it's just this wonderful kind of awareness of how inquisitive I've become as I've gotten older.
Yeah, I want to shout out to my neighbor Jenny, who wouldn't mind me saying that she's into her mid 80s, and she has a bumper sticker on her car that says "Curiosity never retires," and I just think that that's such a wonderful sentiment.
Amazing.
Well, Eric, thank you very much for being such a wonderful guest on the show, and listeners, thank you for listening to the show. You have been listening to The Art of Aging, which is part of the Abundant Aging podcast series for United Church Homes. And we want to hear from you. What's changed about you that you like as you've aged? What has surprised you the most? What do you think about exercise as you grow older? Give us all your thoughts. We're at the abundantagingpodcast.com. You can also find us on YouTube under United Church Homes. And you can also find us on the web at unitedchurchhomes.org. You also will want to take a special look at the Ruth Frost Parker Center for Abundant Aging, which can be found at unitedchurchhomes.org/Parker-Center. And just a reminder, you can find Eric and his gang at team, because we're a team, teamvivo.com. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time.